So I'm FJ, as I said earlier. This is the fluidized bed that we constructed. So I explained to you guys the physics behind it. It's going to cover like a lot of different areas, and it's pretty cool, so you guys can come over and see it afterwards. So right now, if you can see, it's sort of like sand that you'd find at a beach. You could run on it, right? You can hit it, and sort of like really in a solid state. You can see this lacrosse ball, and these like various masses are resting on top of the sand. So we'll go over to the whiteboard to try to show. So one force that's always going to affect you when you're on Earth, let's just say that this is you, it's going to be the force of gravity, so that's your mass times the acceleration of gravity. So it's always going to be pulling you in a downwards direction. So now you can see with these masses resting on top of the sand is providing a force back up because every action is an equal and opposite reaction. So one of these forces that can provide a force back up is called buoyant force. So just to give you a quick example of buoyant force, because it is pretty complicated, we can use this. If I drop the ping pong ball, you can see how the gravity is pulling it towards the ground until it hits the ground, and the force pulls it back up. But you like this, float in the air, right? So that's an example of the buoyant force. The air pushing up on the ping pong ball that's keeping it up, that's the buoyant force. So that's going to factor into this because fluidized beds are used in like various industries. One of the main things is farming to keep everything moving, right? So let's say like you're in a silo and you have a bunch of grain in the silo, right? You don't want the grain to just sit there if you want to come out, so they pump air through it, which is what this PVC pipe is for. And what that does is it turns it from a solid into a liquid. So the way that it does that, and you guys have gone over like, you know, what is the difference between solids and liquids, right? Have you been taught that? All right, so we'll just go over it really quickly anyway. Solids, the molecules in a solid are packed really close together, they're locked together, right? And in a liquid, you know, they're more spread out. That's why, you know, you can't put your hand through this board, but you could put it through water. So I'd like you to think of every particle of sand in this as one of those atoms. So picture each of these as a particle of sand. Right now, they're all locked together. It's really solid like this. Once you put the air through it, and I'll ask you guys to come over and see in a second, it's going to move all these apart because the buoyant force is going to affect them in different directions, and they're going to pull it apart and provide air so you can you know, put your hands through it, and you'll see what happens to the masses. So I'd like you guys to come up and you can see. Alright, we're on this air compressor.
You can spread around both sides of the table, guys.
Yeah, you guys might want to stand back a tiny bit. Yeah. Because it does come up in the air.
At least a foot between you and the table.
Everyone take a step
Step back. Alexander, step back.
Alright.
You need space between you and the table.
So you
You're
see,
fine
these
here.
aren't
You're
going
fine
down.
because you're so far away from the thing.
Let's see what happens with this ping pong ball. I'll put it down there, okay? So let's see. We haven't done this air compressor. This is Mr. McClay's air compressor. So there we go.
Oh, cool.
So you can see, and I'll hit pause for a second. These ping pong balls were underneath, right? Because of the fact that the sand was acting as a solid, it's pushing down on them. But once it wasn't a solid anymore, they could come up because they have a high buoyant force acting on them. And these masses, they went straight down. So I'll reset everything. I don't know where the other mass is. It's disappeared.
I think there might be some more.
Here it is. So we'll put it here. So we'll turn it on again. And you guys saw the air come up. But so you guys see how it comes up. And what you can do is you can come over. Everyone come over and I'll turn it on again. Just put your hand through it right now while it's solid.
Don't put your face through it.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Layla,
And then I'll turn it on again.
Layla, can you let Max in for 1 second? Thanks, Layla.
Alright, and I'll turn it on. And now you should be able to feel it. Much easier to move around, right? Sort of like water. And now put your hands under it. Put your hand under it. I'll turn it off. You feel it sort of like comes around you and like pulls you down. Yeah. And then you can also see, when we turn it off, you see here how the bubbles stopped that were coming up. You see the bubbles up and then boom, it stopped. Yeah, so everything basically gets locked in place. So this can be turned on and off. That's basically it. The stuff with a higher buoyant force gets pushed up to the top. The stuff that's going to have a higher force of gravity and less buoyant force is going to get pulled down. So, yeah. Now I'll turn you over, guys, to Walter, and he's going to explain the blue block.
So if you guys can just take your seats, please.